Hello everyone, this is part 9 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto age, 30, immortal. Naruto mental age, 16. Fire country, border. And so we've come full circle, ne Natsu-chan. Naruto stated in a joking manner, while looking around. It would seem so, Naru-kun, she answered back. The reason for his statement was simple. The pair just reached the interior border of Fire Country and were actually in the same clearing where Naruto first began his training a little over 5 years ago. Really is surprising how much I've changed in only 5 years. He thought randomly before looking over at his mate and couldn't help but happily smile. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. He concluded. Natsumi was walking next to him, before she noticed the smile on his face. Wondering what was on his mind, she decided to tease him a bit before asking what was really up. TSK Naru-kun, can't keep your eyes off me ne. We'll gamen your charms will have to wait till after training as always. She said, smirking, while seeing a small tinge of pink on his cheeks. Always the vixen, he answered back smiling. Never heard you complain before, she said, chuckling before letting her face turn into a comfortable smile. Everything all right, Naru-kun? Her tone now different, he realized she was curious. Hi, hey, just being nostalgic I guess from being back where we began. Quote. He stated before looking up in the sky, his eyes taking a distant look. Quote. So much has changed in the last 5 years, yeah, no. But all the same, he paused his sentence, to grab Natsumi and pull her into a passionate kiss, before lightly pressing their foreheads together and looked into her eyes. This trip with you has been the best thing that could have happened to me. He finished with another smile and chaste kiss. If I didn't know you any better I would say you are trying to sweet talk me, Namikaze-san. She said with a small giggle. But you're right, a lot has changed, for both of us separately, and together, and the trip really was amazing, wasn't it? She rhetorically asked, only getting a nod in response. The two soon broke apart and quickly reminisced, before preparing the area for another long stay. Once the area was to their liking, Naruto called over Natsumi to have a small chat. Natsu-chan, what did you want me to get started on for training? He asked in a relaxed but serious tone. The demoness knew this question was coming, but was hoping for more time. Truth be told, in her mind there was too much to do and not enough time to do it in. As these situations tend to fall into. She tried her best to encase this year of training into more specialized areas, but there was still so much. She could only conclude that Naruto would have to work twice as hard this year than he had done for any other. The only upside is that his cage bushins would help dramatically in this department, but it would still be a tight squeeze to fit everything she wanted into the year. Honestly, Naru-kun, too much, she said with a chuckle. There are so many things I want you to work on, but I can only have you do so much. So I chopped it down to the 5 important things: Onopo jutsus, Uzumaki jutsus, Kenjutsu, Kaiten jutsus, and also any jutsus that you are concocting on your own as well. And knowing you and how dangerous your personalized jutsu can be, you'll need all the time you can get into perfecting them without blowing up half of Fire Country. She finished, laughing at one of her memories of the first time he demonstrated one of his own jutsu. Hi, I do like big and flashy. He chuckled. So, you want me to master Kushina's Kekkei Genkai jutsus? He finished, his jovial tone now completely gone. Hi, she answered with her animalistic leer. If nothing else, then for that women to hear all the way in Whirlpool that the Sochi she threw away was using her jutsus better than anyone in that monstrous clan of hers could ever hope to. So she will realize and lament the mistake of leaving you, someone with so much raw potential and talent, in the hands of the wolves called Konoha citizens for the rest of her miserable life. The vixen spat out. Naruto smiled, at his mate's equal hate for Uzumaki Kushina, as well as protection of him. He quickly wrapped her up in his arms, and nibbled on one of her fox ears to get her attention. Have I told you how much I love you today? he asked huskily against her ear. She purred from his actions. No, but you don't have you, I know you do. Naruto just smiled at her response before giving her another kiss and released her from his possessive GS. Naruto created an army of Kage Bushins and designated a large platoon to serve for each section that Natsumi wanted him to train in. Well, besides the Kaiten Jutsu, he hated cheating after all, so he'd learn those himself. While the clones did that, Naruto and Natsumi began his lessons on the art of fire. 6 months later. It's been 6 months since the demon pair had returned to the land of fire. And as luck would have it, no one had stumbled upon Naruto's training or the clearing they claimed as their home. In the meantime, Naruto had taken great leaps in progression in all aspects of his training thanks to his clones. Although the Onepo jutsus were still hard since they were so complex, he still progressed in stride with Natsumi's expectations. The Uzumaki jutsu were a piece of cake to learn for Naruto. He had actually scoffed when Natsumi taught his clones the jutsu she had acquired from the only battle she had with them, but never forget each and every jutsu they threw at her. Only a few weeks had passed when that platoon of clones came back saying they mastered all of the Uzumaki jutsus. Once gaining their knowledge, he decided that then and there it was a waste of time for his clones to do it. With his level of control and sheer amount of chakra now, those techniques were child's play whether or not they were some of the strongest in the world, for humans. As for Naruto's knowledge of Kaiten, it took him a while to understand the E-flat and flow of flames. One of the first things he learned is that fire hated to be controlled, said lesson he wouldn't soon forget with the reminder of burnt clothing falling off his body from an inaccurate Kaiten jutsu in the first few weeks. However, now he learned how to harness as well as respect fire, and in response the fire obeyed him when he called upon it. And although wind was his natural-born affinity, Natsumi's was fire, which she had mastered hundreds of years ago. He had learned that after his Sosei, that her fire mastery partially passed on to him, making learning fire jutsu only slightly harder to than his wind jutsu. While also learning that he had gained the immunity to fire as well, just like Natsumi or anyone who masters the fire element gains. Naruto's original jutsus he was working on were a mystery even to Natsumi herself. Every time she asked to watch those specific clones, he'd just tell her he wanted to surprise her when he used them. Although pouting at not liking the answer, she shrugged and continued her lessons, knowing eventually she'd see them in action. And either kiss him because of his ingeniousness or smack him in the back of the head cause of his stupidity, either one she was fine with. Naruto's training in the Kitsune Isei-Ru went as smoothly as it always had, with him now knowing 8 of the offensive techniques, and 5 of the defensive ones. However, this particular training was stopped when Natsumi added another variable to the equation, a second sword. Flashback, 3 months ago. Naru-kun, come here, Natsumi commanded after seeing her mate finish off another successful, Gukakyu no Jutsu, great fireball technique. Naruto jogged to his vixen, and noticed the glint in her eye that usually spelled trouble for him. Hi. He stuttered out. She laughed at his reaction. Oh, calm down, you scaredy cat, it's nothing painful, this time. She smirked, happy to see the small bead of sweat run down his face, and then, we are going to grab your second sword, she said happily. He quirked a brow on confusion. A second sword. Her smile widened. Hi. And this one should be a lot more suited to you than Shinku Kaijin is. Why is that? And why do I need a second sword anyway? I mean, Shinku Kaijin is a great sword on its own. He asked, wondering about her decision. While that statement is true, this second sword, Sautenkei's Azure Breeze, is, as the name might reveal, a wind-based sword. His brows shot up slightly in realization. I see. Well, if you think it'll help, I won't say no. Alright, well, we have to go back to my home, so we should get going before it becomes too dark, she commanded, getting a nod from her mate before they ran off into the thick forest. They reached Natsumi's den fairly quickly thanks to the speed each possessed. She nipped her thumb and grazed it against the stone wall before it began to move by her command. The pair swiftly ran through the dark cave, and reached the back of the cave near the very same hay pile that Naruto found, Shinku Kaijin. Natsumi looked at the 3 indentations still in the hay with a sad expression on her face, before she felt a comforting arm rest on her shoulders. They'd be proud, you know, Naruto admitted, squeezing her reassuringly. She frowned, an expression on contemplation in her expression. I hope so, she said with a sad tone. Naruto leaned in and kissed her temple, before turning her away from her TD memories. And as if she was restored to her usual self, Natsumi continued onto the back wall of the cave and nipped her thumb once more, writing a unique seal on it. Once she finished the seal, the wall pulled apart, revealing a hidden room, with many odd treasures that Naruto couldn't recognize. He was about to reach out and touch one of the oddities, but Natsumi grabbed the hand, shook her head and pulled him with her to the very back of the room. In the back, was a sheathed sword resting on the wall. Its handle was a dark sky blue, while its sheath was the same as Shinkukain's, the purest of black. Without missing a beat, Natsumi grabbed the sword from the wall and hugged it against her body, her face revealing a far-off look like she was remembering someone from her past. Soon the expression left and she turned to Naruto before stretching out her hands with the sword in them. I failed to mention, this was my first mate's sword, Naru-kun. But since he is no longer here to wield it, I believe you're worthy to be its new master, she confessed in a low tone, trying to hold back the memories of her past lover. Naruto, truth be told, didn't want the responsibility of holding on to something so precious to Natsumi as this sword obviously was. But he knew that it would be an insult to not take it, since he knew just how hard it must be to have come here and do this, all for his sake. He reached out and apprehensively touched the sword. After no negative reaction, gripped it and lifted it from the vixen's hands before an unknown voice resounded through the room. It's been a long time. Natsumi-sama, a masculine voice called out. Naruto on reflex sped Sautenkei's from its sheath and was already in his kenjutsu stance, a cold demeanor about him. Hi, that is Sautenkei-san, Natsumi answered from behind Naruto, before a regal-looking Naruto came into view from the darkness. This Naruto was basked in pure white clothing, making the real Naruto think it was an angel, but the fact that it looked like him made him realize it wasn't. So, this sword is sentient as well? He asked, just getting a smile from his counterpart. That I am Naruto-san. And I'd like to say, arigato for taking such obvious care of Natsumi-sama after Aoshi-sama SD. Sautenkei said with a bow. She needed someone to keep her company and talk with after all that happened to her. And I was the only one who would apparently listen to her, so I did the best I could. He answered back. Of course I understand. I have your memories after all. The light Naruto said with a smile while pointing to his weapon, self. If you are planning testing me like Natsu-chan's sword did, I think we'll need to do so elsewhere. This is too confined and Konoha is too close. Hi, you'd be quite right, if we were planning on fighting, that is. He answered with a bemused smile. But I have no need for you to prove yourself to me. Your pains, trials, and triumphs in the past are proof enough of your power to me. I will forever be your weapon, Naruto-sama. Case finished with a full bow. Arigato. Now before I make my exit, I just wish to give Natsumi-sama one final message. The white Naruto paused and slowly walked up to Natsumi, leaned in and whispered in her ear before vanishing in a white mist, leaving the vixen with both a smile on her face and tears in her eyes. What's WRO? Naruto started to ask, before she was crushing him in an embrace, sobbing against his chest. Naruto did nothing for the next few minutes besides holding on to his red-haired lover, while she cried into him. Nothing is wrong, Naru-kun. She finally answered, regaining her emotions. Kei-san just told me that Aoshi-kun wanted me to know that he was happy I've moved on and found another that can make me happy again. She paused while snuggling into his chest. Also, he wanted to give you a warning that if you ever break my heart, he'll find a way to come back to this world and you'll have to fight him in his demon form with all 8 of his tails. She finished with a slight giggle at her old lover's protectiveness. Well, Aoshi-san has nothing to worry about. If that ever happened, I'd welcome death. It would be a just punishment for such a crime. Naruto cooed to her while rubbing her back. Natsumi's only answer was her pressing against him even more. He held her tightly, not really wanting to let go but knowing he had to. Let's go, Natsu-chan. I still have some training to do with this new sword. And I'm sure you could use the rest. He suggested softly, only to realize that she had actually fallen asleep against him. He smiled at her before unsummoning his new sword, lifted up his mate in his arms and ran out of the cave back towards his training ground. Flashback end. 6 months later. Another 6 months passed, and Naruto's training continued as usual. The main difference now was that he had to incorporate dual-wielding Shinku Kaijin and Souten K's into his Kitsune Iseru, which was a style meant for one sword. After some experimentation, Naruto had sent the clones that worked on his original jutsus to start on his own personalized version of his Kitsune Iseru to incorporate both swords now, but bemusedly kept Natsumi away from watching its development. He enjoyed playfully frustrating his mate in these instances, but he always paid for them in the end. During his training, however, a rather important piece of information crossed the pair's path in the form of Kaname's old spy from Oto, who out of respect for his old master was now working for them, seeing as how they were the few close friends she still had after her defection from Sound. Flashback, 3 months earlier. Good Naru-kun, good, now just increase the concentration of chakra to burn through the stone, instead of just scorching it. Natsumi commanded, while watching her orange-haired mate blasting a large boulder with his newly acquired, Kaiten, Karyuenden, fire style, fire dragon flame projectile. Not too bad. Not as powerful as the Uzumaki's version as much as I detest admitting, but still not bad, Naruto responded offhandedly, while watching his last jutsu with a smirk. Natsumi suddenly heavily sniffed the air, before turning her head towards the forest. Appears we have some company, Naru-kun. Hi. Sounds like Nobu-san, he responded while listening to the approaching footsteps. Not a moment later, in front of the pair, a man garbed out in Oto-junin attire appeared via Shunshin, in a kneeling position with his head down. Naruto-sama, Natsumi-sama, I have my report from Oto as you requested since the sad demise of Kaname-sama. The young man said in a profession tone. The mention of their friend caused a saddened look on the pair's faces. They missed her greatly since she SD, but knew she would hate them as they wallowed over her passing. Their expressions took on a nonchalant form, before telling the spy to rise. So what is the news from Oto Nobunaga-san? Naruto asked. Hi. It seems that Orochimaru is going to try to finally get his revenge on Konoha. He is preparing all of his shinobi for war, and going to use the Chunin exams that are being held in Konoha this year to infiltrate the village without suspicion. He seems to also have gotten the hidden sand village to be his allies. Though I think it's just for his own gain, but I have no hard evidence to back up my theory about that fact particularly. I see. Excellent work, Nobu-san. If you learn anything else, I'm afraid there won't be any way to get the information to us. If what you say is correct, however, go with Oto for the invasion. I'd rather you continue to play the part you have been than to be found out. And when the attack comes, head to the Namika's compound, you'll be protected there. Natsumi commanded gently. Understood, Natsumi-sama, until we meet again, be safe. He finished before, shunshining back into the forest. What do you think, Natsu-chan? Things will be interesting, that's for sure. And it'll be nice to finally give that damn snake what he deserves, for us both, she responded with a sadistic leer. Already imagining the bloodshed ne. He joked, seeing her expression. She pouted cutely. Or, am I really that easy to read? No, but I certainly noticed how much you enjoyed Sing Dotu's army. Granted, I enjoyed it just as much. And you had that same expression just before we began that, as Sandayu-san called it, so I just guessed this one was for the same reason. Quite the observant one, aren't we? She asked sarcastically. He smiled, bemused. I was taught by the best after all. She smirked smugly. Damn right you were. The two concluded their conversation as Naruto began his training once again. Later that night, Naruto couldn't quite sleep and decided to think about the news he had just received earlier in the day. He was currently sitting and resting on one of the branches of a large tree near their campsite, while just thinking. Still thinking about the news. A feminine voice called out from the darkness. Hi, just wondering on what we should really do, other than Orochimaru, of course. He responded before feeling a heaviness against his chest, and noticed that Natsumi just plopped herself down between his hanging legs and was now resting against his chest. Well, you already know what my opinion will be, she said amusingly. He laughed knowingly. Hi, let the whole place burn, it's why I didn't come to you. Let me guess, it's that some of the people in the village you wish to save from the invasion, correct? His smile SD then, turning into a frown. Hi. The problem is that I'll need to protect the village to be able to protect the specific people I want to. Quote. He paused with a sigh. This is just getting more complicated and troublesome than I had wanted it to be when I first heard about it. Tsuki-san and Ayami-san are an easy fix, since I can just get them into the Namikaze compound and activate the traps I'm sure that my two-san built into the place. The problem is just who Oji-san and Hana-chan are. Shinobi of the Leaf and will fight to both beat back Oto, and save any Konoha citizen, or shinobi from harm. So by deciding to protect them, the only way to do that would be to save everyone I can in Konoha so they won't have to and can stay out of harm's way while we Orochimaru to oblivion. He explained, while looking up at the night sky with a contemplative look on his face, only to realize what he said about a certain Chunin and prayed to all that was holy his mate didn't pick up on it. Well, Naru-kun, although I hate to agree with your reasoning, you are right. The only way to protect those two is to fight to save Konoha. And although I loathe to save that Kami-forsaken village, I'll save it if only so the people that are important to you end up safe by the time everything is over. She promised, swinging a hand back and caressed his scarred cheek tenderly. Naruto enjoyed her touch and leaned into her hand while laying his head between the junction of her head and shoulder. Arigato Natsu-chan, I know how hard it must be to save those ungrateful bastards. I promise that we will only be in the village long enough to do what we are going there to do. He promised back. You've helped me through so much, that it is only fair I do the same, and besides, during the chaos maybe you'll be able to take out a few Konoha shinobi while fighting Oto as well. She retorted with another one of her bloodthirsty leers. Perhaps, however, I do not wish to join Konoha as a shinobi. Being tied down to that place is something I'm not planning on happening again. So we need to think up a plan to at least make it look like we are on Konoha's side, at least until the time is right to reveal our intentions and do what we enjoy doing best. That would be best, Naru-kun, do you have any ideas? She questioned, her millennia-old mind already running through undercover situations that could possibly benefit them. A few, but we'll need to solidify them first. He answered back, getting a nod from the vixen resting against him. Oh, by the way, Naru-kun, did I hear you right before when calling that cute Chunin you saved a few years back, Chan? I didn't think you thought about her that often, I must be losing my edge, she teased. Damn, he thought, cringing, with a smile, knowing a small slip-up like that wouldn't have been missed by the vixen, but it didn't hurt to hope, did it? Anno, well Hi, I did. He attempted to lie but realized he couldn't get out of it before chuckling in defeat. Well, I'm at least glad other women are on your mind, even though we agreed upon you not forcing a relationship. But since we also agreed on becoming parents, I would like to hear the pitter-patter of little kits in the next 100 years. She joked, snuggling into his chest a bit more. But I have to say, that I like your choice. Hana was not only cute as I recall, but seemed to have a rather animalistic demeanor to her. An obvious attribute from her clan, but she will make an excellent Karsan to our kits later if anything happens between you two. And I'm sure those attributes will help in certain areas, like the bedroom, for example. She finished with a snicker, feeling her mate physically shiver from her innuendo at the end. Although I'm glad you approve of the her. I think that can wait till we are already comfortable inside Konoha to see where if anything goes. But I think we should think about a solid plan to actually get back in without having any anbuked for trying to stop us from warning Oji-san. Hi. Well, here was what I was thinking we could do. She started before explaining her idea to her mate, that lasted throughout the night. Flashback end. The 3 months that passed was just hardcore training for the orange-haired Hanyu. As well as crystallizing their final plans for infiltration back into Konoha. It was finally the last day of Naruto's training, and although he still had a nice chunk of things to work on, they would have to wait. The demon pair were currently a mile away from Konoha's gates, each with a rather hateful glare towards the large wooden doors, but knew what needed to be done and sighed in defeat. Guess this is it, Natsu-chan? Naruto asked. Hi. I'll see you when it's safe. She responded, before leaning up and kissed him passionately before puffing back into the seal. Well, let's see if Konoha is ready to have its Jinchuriki back. Naruto said in a rather upbeat way, though his face told Anther's story with a sadistic leer much like Natsumi's. Naruto set a hand into a seal, before a plum of smoke erupted and replaced his Hanyu form, with a teenage version of his old self had he not had Natsumi in him. Once he approved of his new look, he swiftly went through a set of unique seals, no one but a few people in the world could recognize. Onopo, Kagiri nai Fukuman Demon Art, Eternal Mask. He said before another plum of smoke surrounded him, now revealing a perfect copy of Hatake Kakashi. Naruto took out the infamous book the Junin pervert always had with him, and opened the book randomly, though none of the pages had anything written in them. Naruto was not stupid enough to create anything but blank pages in the book lest he earn the wrath of his mate, in a serious way. This guy really needs a better hobby if this is all he does when not on missions. He thought, shaking his head, and began briskly walking towards the gates. Well, let's see how much 6 years has changed this place, he concluded. Naruto grew apprehensive while walking towards the gates, though not really from fear, more so of someone saying something stupid and him having to deal with them, while then having to deal with the troublesome consequences. He finally reached the gates before stopping, and took in a long look at the peaceful village. Home, he said reminiscently, before snickering at his ironic joke, and walked through the threshold of Konoha. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.